Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show. If you like the Mike Wagner Show and you want to make your own podcast, well, let me tell you about Anchor. First of all, it's free. Secondly, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can also add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. You can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. This edition of the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Picture This Photo Books, where remembering is the key ingredient. How beautiful your mother looked at her wedding, and even more so at yours. And who doesn't miss Grandma's meatballs? The holidays are coming. What better time to give a gift of remembrance that makes you laugh and cry all at the same time? Whatever gift of Grandma's recipes, or just because, those smiles and tears will melt your heart. Call Karen Shaw at 646-798-0809 or visit picturethisphotobooks.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 10% off your first order. Picture This Photo Books, bringing your memories back to life. They're whimsical, casual, or formal, and always uniquely you.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show. It's time to give a shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mian Mohsen Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, then you'll love Missing by Mian Mohsen Zia. Available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. It takes place in 4 countries with 2 strangers and 1 target where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Missing by Mian Mohsen Zia has garnered great reviews and is even loved by Hollywood celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today. Order Missing by Mian Mohsen Zia, now available at Amazon.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mian Mohsen Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mian Mohsen Zia. Available on Amazon, paperback, and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mian Mohsen Zia has garnered great reviews and even loved and endorsed by Hollywood celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today before it goes missing by Mian Mohsen Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show on over 30 podcast platforms and the MikeWagnerShow.com, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music, and more. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, makes great gifts year round. Go to Amazon.com, check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mian Mohsen Zia for great books like Missing, Once and Wrinkles, and cool merchandise, T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, as well as hoodies and phone cases and more. Amazon.com/Mian Mohsen Zia. And don't forget to support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, as well as PayPal and and PayPal, Anchor FM, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you donate generously today. We're here with a terrific gentleman who is a former pro wrestler of 20 plus years as Chase Rawlings in Baltimore, won numerous titles in the EWA and a number of matches. And he also has a new podcast, which is a spinoff of the former Happy Hour TV show, which many shows got lost in the 2013 Thanksgiving Day house fire. And his podcast, if you're wondering, he has a co-host and it's just a bunch of friends just having a good time, having a beer, and just, their wives are wondering, what the hell are you talking about? Well, of course, we're here to talk about, himself and wrestling and also talk about a few things going on in Baltimore. Well, speaking of Baltimore, live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios, somewhere in Maryland, and he's wishing he was at a Ravens game or getting ready to go see the Orioles. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented former pro wrestler and Happy Hour podcast host, Ray Chase. Ray, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
How you doing, Mike? What's up, man? A pleasure being on here, and thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate you allowing me to come on and talk about the Happy Hour podcast and, of course, my ventures in pro wrestling. It's kind of funny. We were talking a little bit via email, and I told you, I was like, I don't even think I can document, the 20 plus years I was associated with pro wrestling on my own show, much less try to get through it. That's always a go-to for a lot of people, because a lot of people, it's very interesting to them how guys get into it and, especially how the show's wrapped up in it and all that. I mean, it's been one hell of a ride, man. Like, I've gotten the shit beaten out of me for like 20 years. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to make it to WWE or any place like that. There were opportunities. I didn't capitalize on those opportunities. I didn't get into shape when I probably should have gotten into shape, and it happens. So,
But of course, you also won a number of titles in the EWA, and you also were, one of the top wrestlers in the Baltimore area. And before we get further as well, too, tell us how you first got started, and especially into pro wrestling.
Well, shit. I mean, I grew up, watching pro wrestling. 1990, I'll never forget 1990 Survivor Series. That was the first event I ever watched. Of course, anybody who knows anything about pro wrestling, that's the event where The Undertaker debuted. So, I have to credit The Undertaker for the man, that I grew up watching and inspiring to be, like The Undertaker. So, that's the reason. And, it got to a point I had posters all over my wall. I had over 500 figures, you name it. I had it, wrestling oriented. And I got about the age, I was 13. I was getting ready to turn 14. It was March of 1999. And my dad saw an ad in the paper for Brainbusters Pro Wrestling Training Academy in Middle River, Maryland. And he's like, hey, I have this money saved up. I can either, continue to save it for you to get a car, or you can go to this wrestling school and learn how to become a wrestler. And I mean, me being 13, I'm like, well, am I old enough? Can I sign up, as young as I am or whatever? So I was like, well, shit, I can get a car later on in, time, so let's do it. So went down, signed up. I was one of the youngest guys there, my dad signed for me. It was March 99. I was 13 going on 14. So, I'm down there in training, and, for anybody who knows pro wrestling, if anybody's ever heard of Hollywood Bobby Starr, he was an enhancement talent for WWF and WCW. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, he's a jobber. So pretty much he would go out, get the shit beaten out of him, get pinned, and that'd be it. All those so cool guys you would see in the 90s, they were called nobodies. A lot of people called them nobodies. But Bob was able to wrestle Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, all those greats, Shawn Michaels in those enhancement matches. So, Bob was one of my first trainers. I'm still great friends with Bob today. He's been on the podcast numerous times. I love talking to him. So yeah, basically went down there, and I'm 13 years old going on 14, having the shit beaten out of me every single night by 40-year-old men. So, that's the thing that over time, and in Maryland, you can't get a license to become a professional wrestler until you're at least 18.
Oh, wow.
So, I got all that experience under my belt, when I started training, and I officially wrestled my first match when I was 19. So, all that time building up, that once I finally made it, I left Brainbusters, went to Bone Breakers Pro Wrestling Training Academy for Maryland Championship Wrestling for a little bit, left there, and then I landed at the EWA Pain Factory, which is where I got my start in EWA. Right behind me is my EWA Hall of Fame. award that I have up on my mantle. So,
oh, that's amazing, including the Baltimore Oriole mascot. I'm sure he would love to wrestle.
yeah, and actually a base from Camden Yards. That's right there behind me.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So, but no, I mean it's been one hell of a ride. Like, I mean, I can't sit there and tell you, I don't remember all my matches. And as I said, I'm what they like to call an indie guy. I did a lot of independent stuff, but I had the benefit over the years, anybody who's listening to your program, if they know anything about pro wrestling, if they know anything about WWE, AEW, I had the honor of, before they were famous, when they were young, being able to work with Drew Gulak, who's currently in WWE, Adam Cole, who's in WWE and currently in NXT, James Ellsworth. There was a handful of referees that I came up with that, were either referees or wrestlers when I was around. Tony Nese, I got to do shows with Tony Nese, John Moxley and Eddie Kingston. I was on the same cards as them, shared the same locker room with some of those guys. I was able to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts. I've been able to do some amazing things, and everything I have in life, including, my wife, my house, everything. If pro wrestling wouldn't have existed, none of that would exist for me today, including the Happy Hour podcast.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. It sounds like you've had one heck of a wrestling career, and maybe you can just tell some of one of the best matches you had, or maybe even like a couple of funny moments you had as well too in wrestling.
Well, what's actually pretty cool is, wrestling is very unique. So, some of the guys that I enjoyed, wrestling with, there was a gentleman named JD Bam Bam Roberts. He was a little bit the same size as me. He was about 290, 300 pounds, big hoss. Me and him were the type of guys, we did not give a shit how hard we hit each other. So we would just go out there and we would just beat the hell out of each other. We had several matches against each other. We had a steel cage match. We had a bull rope match. You just name it. We just went out there and beat the heck out of each other. He's no doubt one of my favorite opponents. There was a 300-pound Samoan named Nui. Me and him, we always got in. We always had great matches. Ryan Mcbride, who's with Maryland Championship Wrestling, he was always great. I mean, and of course, working with my tag partner, the Baltimore Butcher Blood. So one of my best friends, he was in my wedding. I've wrestled against him more times than anybody else in my career because me and him were road buddies. So we would just get in the car together. We would drive the shows, mainly so we could go to the strip club afterwards. We had to sometimes we were like, let's just find this crappy show and let's go wrestle the first match, and then we'll spend the rest of the night at the strip club. And that's what we would do. So, normally in that situation, you show up and they're like, all right, you guys work each other because you guys know each other. So we literally did the same match every, on Friday night, Saturday night, at two different places, just so we could go to the beer and see boobs afterwards. A lot of those shows didn't pay much, so our reward to ourselves was going to the strip club afterwards. But, it's just fun. And then me and him later on in time, we went on to winning tag belts. And, really a lot of the stories, if a lot of people want to hear a lot of the fun stories, the fun road stories, all the messed up stuff that happened while we were on the road, the strip club stories, all that's all on the podcast. We did 4 episodes that were called the War Pigs Table. Mm-hmm. And that evolved because there was a strip club that we would go to here in Baltimore called Christina's. Uh-huh. And we would sit at this round table in the corner of the bar, and the girls would have to get down off stage, walk to us, and if they wanted a tip. And we called it the War Pigs Table. So when I got the idea of starting up the Happy Hour podcast, I was like, I cannot start the show unless I do it with my 2 best friends in pro wrestling, and we talk about our road stories. So the first 2 episodes of the podcast when we started last year is that. And then we did a 3rd one, and then we did a 4th one. So all that chronicalizes a lot of our wrestling. There's so much stuff we still haven't got to yet. But yeah, if a lot of these guys want to hear a lot of those fun stories and laugh, and there's stories that involve Terry Funk. There's stories that, involve King Kong Bundy. My gosh. Just all kinds of fun, different stories, because we've been around for so long. Like, I've been around for 20 years. I've been around a lot of guys. I've been able to meet a lot of people, I talked a little bit about being a part of the Wrestler movie with Mickey Rourke when they filmed down in South Philly.
Wow. Mickey Rourke. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, it's just all fun and, it's all there. I mean, I think each one of those episodes was almost 2 hours because we just had so much and we had more and more and more and more after that. And, unfortunately, my tag partner just moved to South Carolina, so I don't see him as much. But every so often we'll get together and we'll get on the podcast and be like, hey, let's just, kick it. But yeah, pro wrestling has been great to me. I'm going on 37. So, for me to have 20 some years, 20 plus years, and I'm 37, going on 37. And, it just goes to show I started when I was 13 and, rolled through all the way up until about 2 years ago. And then, that was it.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And of course, another thing, what was it like being on set with Mickey Rourke?
I mean, it was fun. I mean, I got to meet him, shake his hand or whatever. Unfortunately, my role got cut from the movie. They had an open casting call for any independent wrestlers to be in locker room scenes or just to be extra cast. So I knew DJ Hyde. DJ Hyde owns CZW, Combat Zone Wrestling in South Philly. That's where guys like Adam Cole, Drew Gulak, John Moxley, all those guys, they came up through Combat Zone Wrestling. So, they actually did a scene in the movie. If you saw the movie yourself, there was a scene where Mickey Rourke wrestled Necro Butcher, and it was a death match, and they were using light tubes and all that. And they recorded that part of the show while we were there. And my part initially, there was a scene where Mickey Rourke came down the steps in the back after that match. And I grabbed his hand. I kind of helped him down the steps.
Oh, wow.
And the original shot that they used was a looking up the step shot. But then they also had a camera view that was looking down the steps. So we were under the impression they were going to use to shoot the up. They ended up using the back, which all you kind of see is just maybe like a finger.
Oh, my gosh.
So I couldn't get the IMDb credit, but I got to go out. I got paid for it. Got to meet Mickey Rourke, and they did a scene where he threw up.
Oh.
And he fell on the floor and threw up. So he took Nella wafers and ginger ale and he put it in his mouth. And that's how they did the throw up. So I watched him fall on the floor and throw up at least 90 times.
He's probably gotten to be a pro by now. And then afterwards, it's like, feel better, go for beer and boobs afterwards. Yeah. And Jello wrestling too. Don't forget the Jello wrestling. It's like, that's something you can teach the girls as well too. Jello wrestling. They don't know how to do it. You guys can teach them.
Well, what's
mud wrestling? Yes.
Actually, what's really funny is you brought up my old TV show Happy Hour TV. Mm-hmm. That we started that. It was me and a couple of guys. There was a gentleman named Joe Hamilton, and he had a TV show called Hamilton's Happy Hour, and he was thinking about bringing it back. And, he was close with all of us. He was the booker in EWA. So, we were all close. We always went to the bar afterwards after we did shows. And he's like, hey, I'm thinking about bringing my show back. And, you guys are, crazy enough to where, we can do it. And he used to do like all kinds of random skits, like, and this was back in like the mid 90s where he would go down to the city and he would do like the homeless Olympics or, stuff like that. It was kind of like Wayne's World.
Wayne's World. I was just going to think of that on an all access. Was it like Carrier Current, cable channel and all that? So it's like they did it from their house. It was like channel 150 something. Yes, I remember watching Wayne's World. Oh my God, reminds me of those cable carrier channels we had to watch. It's like, what channel is that on again? And how many people are really watching? You can do whatever you want tonight.
Yeah, and it's funny because he wanted to start that, so we kind of started to put the rolls and the wheels in gear a little bit, and they started to get a little bit of oil on the wheels, and all of a sudden Joe just kind of flaked, like he just kind of. Okay, gone. So me and, my close friend Alex Lunar, who was a fellow pro wrestler, we were just kind of like, okay, well, we already recorded a couple of things. We're not sure if Joe's going to be a part of this. And we're like, well, screw it. Should we just do it ourselves? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's roll with it. So at that point, we dropped the Hamilton's part off and it just became, Hamilton's Happy Hour went from that to Happy Hour TV. And then, we were like, okay, well, what should we do? We kind of thought of the whole premise of the Man Show meets Wayne's World, and then we were like, well, we need to have random little skits. So, but part of it was also a reality show. Like we would get drunk and we'd just turn the cameras on and whatever we were doing, that's what we were recording. And, we were recording some of that. And then, we got in the whole thing with interviews. And really what helped the show out was one of the first interviews we got was with adult film star Jesse Jane. And I reached out. And I was like, hey, can we interview you for the show? It's a mature audience's show. It's geared towards men. Can we come out to Larry Flint's Hustler Club and interview you? Sure, no problem. So we came out, we interviewed her. Interview went perfect. And then what she did is she posted it on her official website, jessiejane.com. And that video to today has probably about like 43,000 views on it. So it's one of the highest videos we had ever had. And so, that kind of put the wheels on the gear and they started to turn. And actually at one point we did Jello wrestling. But the way we did Jello wrestling is we had a set that we built. Lunar built the whole entire set in his basement. So we had a set down there and we were like, let's just kind of put out like a casting call, like to all these girls we know. And so the girls came, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Old School with Will Ferrell.
Old School. I think I might have seen it. I can't remember. I've seen so many movies. It's like, oh my gosh. Too many.
There was a scene in Old School where they did lube wrestling in the basement.
Oh, and yes.
So we stole the idea from that. So we did it in the basement, and we put up all these clear tarps, all that stuff in the basement. Our wives are just kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like, what are these morons doing? And so we did it, and they actually did the Jello wrestling in the basement. And even after the fire that had happened years later, we were still finding Jello in various parts, like burned Jello.
Oh my gosh, burnt Jello. I've never heard of that. We're going to have to try that one day after having a few too many. Burnt Jello. Let's try that.
Yeah. So, Happy Hour TV, it picked the, and at that point, we were able to interview Sonny Sandoval from POD. We were able, just do all kinds of cool little stuff. And what I did is, along with the Happy Hour podcast, we have kind of like a spinoff called the Happy Hour Podcast Fully Fermented. Mm-hmm. So anybody who follows beer knows that, fully fermented beer, is a beer that's ready to go. So it's all of our vintage stuff. I still had almost an entire video library aside from, all the footage that we lost in the fire. So I was like, well, let me do that as a series called Fully Fermented so people can see some of the old stuff that we were able to do. And let's see, the Happy Hour TV stopped, I think, in 2013. So, and in that time also me and Lunar had like a fallout. We no longer talk. Things happen, with people, and it happens. And people just always kind of ask me, they're like, whatever happened to Happy Hour TV? And, after a while, it got so time consuming because we actually had to go out and physically go to all these places. Zoom didn't exist then, none of that stuff. We had to go to all these places and get all this content.
Oh my gosh.
Edit all these episodes together. It was just so draining, like mentally. Mm-hmm. And so, it was done. It was done. And we're like, okay, so, it is what it is. I continue doing the wrestling thing, continue doing whatever. And then I was at a party one night, and my good friend, and he's also a friend of my co-host, Mike Messick, shout him out. We're actually doing our next episode is live on YouTube this Friday. It's a Friendsgiving episode. We're going to have on some of our close friends.
Oh, and, Friendsgiving. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
And Mike's going to be one of those guys. And, we were sitting there drinking at his house one night, and he's, I was telling him about a TV show, and I was showing him some of the stuff. And he looked me right in my eyes, and he's like, dude, why don't you do it as a podcast? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, there's a podcast for everything out there, man. He's like, what can it hurt? He's like, even if you get like one listener or whatever, he's like, you're keeping yourself occupied. You clearly enjoy doing the show, and it'd be more laid back. You can do it in your basement and just interview people. You don't really need to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, and I would say about a year or so after that is really when the gears started to turn of, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Like, I'm used to pro wrestling. So pro wrestling, a lot of that's improv. You go out, you perform in front of a live crowd. I'm used to that. Happy Hour TV. I knew how to do TV. I knew, like, you can even see I'm very animated. I move my hands, I'm used to being in front of a camera. So I'm just kind of like, well, fuck, how do I do an audio show? I have no idea. I've never done a podcast before. I'd never been on a podcast, nothing. So I Yeti Pro, and my wife got me a really awesome laptop for Christmas.
Nice.
I downloaded Adobe Audition and, all that. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to teach myself how to use Adobe Audition. So I did a couple of mock podcasts, messed around with Adobe Audition, pretty much taught myself Adobe Audition.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I called up my buddies and I'm like, hey, let's do War Pigs. And that's the whole thing. So they came over, and that's what our group name was the War Pigs. So they came over, we drank beer, we recorded it. I signed up for Buzzsprout, threw it on there, and that was that. So to this day, it's funny. I still have no idea how the hell to run a podcast, but I know how to put on a show. So a lot of our focus lately, when it first started, it was mainly on the audio portion of it. And, probably about like August or September, I would say maybe a little bit before that, last year around like episode 15 or 16, 17, something like that, we decided that we were going to start going live. And I was like, I'm better in my own element with live because, I'm used to that, improv, pro wrestling type stuff. And, we started doing that. And I was like, at that point, it forces me to be able to deliver. There is no, let's re-record that. There is no, this,
right.
that.
Yeah. Take, do over like they do in the movies and all that. Yeah. It's just like, sometimes we do as well too. We just let it rip unless, a dog jumps out, cat jumps in front of you, power outage, whatever it is. Yeah. It's like, and I've had that too, where it's like, we have to interrupt an interview just to have fun with, like, a dog jumps on the set, or a cat just like rubs in your face, whatever. Somebody decides to come down, or lately it's like with that whole homeschooling thing, it's like parents and all that just run through the bathroom naked or something, or just a towel. It's like stuff like that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, my wife, she's a saint with a lot of this, because like a lot of times, like she'll be upstairs with the dogs. That I had a local comedian, Tommy Sambazo. Make sure you check him out. Our local comedian friends, they're awesome. They'll come on to the show a lot of times. They'll be guest co-hosts. We'll just laugh, have a great time, and I mean, the whole thing is our show, for anybody listening at home, our show is very mature audiences only, and pretty much I always describe to people that the Happy Hour podcast is pretty much the stuff that you conjure up in your mind when you're drunk at the bar. Mm-hmm. And I asked my co-hosts, who is Matt and Mike, two guys I've known for a very long time. Mike, I worked with for the longest time. He's been my friend for about 10 years. I've known Matt for over 10 years. We would be sitting there at a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a baby shower or whatever, and we would be just laughing hysterically in the corner, in really serious situations. And our wives would be like, what the hell are you guys laughing at? And it's just literally the stuff you hear on the show is just, and it's very risque, but in a world where, people are so offended by everything, we're just kind of out there. We're like, we're just here to have fun, and we tell everybody beforehand, it's like, look, we're going to go on. We may say something that may offend you, not in a rude way, because I feel like comedy is kind of losing its touch.
Exactly.
You had guys like George Carlin. You had guys,
Cheech and Chong,
Dice Clay, you guys who just went out there and said whatever they wanted and they didn't care. Richard Pryor as well, and Kevin Hart's kind of that way as well. It's like, comedy is dying because people are like, oh, well, you can't say that. It's like, it's meant to be funny. And that's the way we are, just like to be funny.
Speaking of comedy, I have a little story to share with you. We'll talk about that in just 1 minute. You're listening to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war-winning author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia. Available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is an illusion and those you love will be the first to go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Me and Wilson Z has garnered great reviews and even loved and endorsed by Hollywood celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today before it goes missing by Me and Wilson Z, available on Amazon. Also, don't forget to check out The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on over 30 podcast platforms. Take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com and check out The Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Me and Wilson Zia for great books and merchandise, and support The Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM and PayPal. And also, MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you donate generously today. And also leave a tip for these guys for the Happy Hour podcast. We're here with Ray Chase of the Happy Hour podcast on the Mike Wagner Show. Lots of beer and everything else. And, just comedy all across the board. And I kind of think of some comedy stories as well, too. But getting back to about comedy, where I was going to tell you a story, too. I was reading a story about Mel Brooks. He's still sharp as a tack and everything. But I was reading online that he said political correctness is killing comedy. And I mean, he's the one that did Blazing Saddles, History of the World, Spaceballs. I mean, I love Mel Brooks to death. He was one of my influences. Him, Cheech and Chong, and of course you had Jack Benny, the Marx Brothers, and I think Lenny Bruce. My dad was a huge Lenny Bruce fan. He was like the Andrew Dice Clay back in the day or something. So, oh my gosh. And yeah, George Carlin, he says, political correctness is just killing comedy. And the thing is, I mean, all these comedians go to these colleges. That's where they make the money. But, because of the cancel culture, it's like you offend, most likely get sued. But it's like, you need to bring that back. Sir, it's like, where a high stress level is this? My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, really, when you look at it, and, we try to, and with our show, we said, we'll talk about anything. We will not talk about politics because it's a very touchy thing. But, the whole thing is political correctness. It's not just killing comedy. It's killing pro wrestling. It's killing TV. It's literally killing everything we enjoy when we live in a country where you have freedom of speech and you can say whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. And, us, we're just kind of like, we're just guys that, there's other people like us out there that, just like to laugh, have a good time. And, my whole thing is, it's like, if you're going to listen to a show, get offended and complain about it, don't listen to that show. As soon as turn it off. Don't go to Twitter and, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, now, we need to take everything from these guys. Just, not for me. Turn it off. That's
it's just like with Duck Dynasty, what Cy Robertson says, you like Duck Dynasty? Don't watch it. Just like you guys, you don't like it? Don't watch it. For those who do not like the Mike Wagner Show, don't complain. Don't watch it. That's the whole thing.
And I mean, that's the thing. Like, with my podcast, I tell people all the time, and I've even said it on air, if we had 5 viewers or 50,000 viewers, I'm doing it because I'm having a good time. I get to meet cool new people. I get to meet you. We have cool new relationships. Eric Woodworth, Tommy Simbazo, Ashley Pontius, Justin Schlegel from 98 Rock, all these comedians that are now good friends of ours, Elaine Shapiro, Jimmy Starr, yourself, Mike, we're all meeting new friends, Soho, Johnny, it's all about the relationships that we have. And we get the, it also for me and Matt, we don't get to see each other much. Matt has 2 kids, whatever, unfortunately he wasn't able to make it tonight, but it's the whole thing of us being able to sit down and hang out and have a good time. And if people like it, okay, cool. And I mean, the show, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, we get 50,000 views now. I mean, the show's really numbers wise, nothing to write home about. You look at our YouTube, some are very high, which are mainly the adult film stars or Jake the Snake Roberts or some are very low. But, it's the whole thing of putting it out there. I try to send merchandise to every guest, any kind of networking I possibly can to get the program out there. That's what I do. And, I'm very lenient. Like, Mike, if there's ever a night where, you're available, I always like to bring people on to guest co-host. So you're always welcome if you want to come on one night and guest co-host with us too.
I greatly appreciate it. And by the way, where can we find the Happy Hour podcast at?
The Happy Hour podcast, of course, we are available on every major podcast platform. Wherever you can find the Mike Wagner Show, that's where you can also find the Happy Hour podcast or Apple Podcasts, Google Chrome, wherever, Instagram, Facebook. Of course, Facebook, when you look up the Happy Hour podcast on Facebook, look for our personal page. We do have a like page. We don't update that as much. So look up Happy Hour Pod on that, and you'll be able to find it on there, or facebook.com/happyhourtvmd, which is also what our YouTube is. It's www.youtube.com/happyhourtvmd. We kept the old Facebook and the old YouTube from the old TV show. And of course, also, if you can't find us there, www.thehhpod.com. That has the archive of all of our episodes, every place you can find us, and, all of our contact information. So, yeah, I mean, it's out there, and the sad part about it is there's a lot of happy hour stuff. So if you go in search and you go to happy hour, there's all kinds of shows that pop up.
Yeah, 50 million, like a King Scorpion. Just don't put Jimmy Buffett in there. Don't do that. He'll probably sue you.
So if there's a guest, like, let's say if you heard a show, like if there's a guest, so, let's say Jake the Snake Roberts. If you type in Jake the Snake Roberts Happy Hour Podcast, it will pop up. So, and that's another reason why we do YouTube Live and we focus a lot more on YouTube, is YouTube is owned by Google. So the search results pop up a lot easier. When you look it up on Google, or if we go live, you can Google it and boom. So make sure, find our YouTube, subscribe. We go live every single week. Always check out the live stream. We always take questions from the fans, for the guests, and, everybody interact with us. We did do Facebook Live for the longest time, but I feel like traction wise, it picks up more traction on YouTube. And also after Facebook had that massive outage and all that.
And of course you have like, imposters and whatever else trying to shut down everything. And of course YouTube's the way to go. And by the way, what time's the live stream? Our time varies. A lot of times, like, we don't have like a set time. Like, I know a lot of shows are like, every week we're at this time. The unique thing, it's kind of unique, but it's also confusing at the same time, is that we go on at various times. I could go on Tuesday night at 8:00, or we could go on Saturday at 4:00. So it's just basically a lot of times we have a guest every week. So every week we have a guest. A lot of it is based off of whatever the guest's available time is. So best thing I can do is just say go to the YouTube and hit subscribe. And anytime we go live, it will let you know Happy Hour Podcast is live. Especially, we got a lot of stuff coming up. As I said, our Friendsgiving episode, which is going to be wild because all the guys in that, we have a group chat on Facebook. And it is wild every time we talk on that. Pretty much be that come to life. After that, we have a local band called Roses on Red. They're going to be on. Very special event. Shout out to our graphic artist, Steve. Anybody goes on our stuff, so we always have really beautiful graphic work, beautiful logos. Steve Freeman does all of our graphic work. We have a gentleman, Curtain Jerker Designs. He does all of our guest graphics. Shout out to those guys. But just definitely go on. It'll let you guys know when we're live, and just come on, have fun, sit down and just enjoy yourself. That's what it is. As I said, the show may not be for everybody, but everybody we've ever had on the show, guest wise, has had a great time. And that's how we just keep on getting guests, is that, people come on, we're not one of those types of shows where we come on, we're like, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background. Everybody knows all that. Like, I might ask to a point, hey, what really got you kind of like, with you? How did you get into wrestling or whatever? But I'm very, like, I listen and I think of stuff. So as soon as someone says one thing that could create a funny comment, I hold on to that. And I'm like, okay, and I'm like, so, you said something, along, and then, kind of make a joke. And then I like for our show, I say on the show all the time, I like for the show to train wreck, for the train to just hit the wall. Because once the train hits the wall, that's when everything just, goes funny. I go in with no notes, very few notes. I just like the very keen wrestling term. It's called on the fly. A lot of guys in wrestling shows, they sit there and they'll talk their match out for an hour. And it's just, I've seen that. Yeah.
And it's just like, guys, we're just going to go out there and forget it. And I've been in the ring before where someone will forget something and you just look and they're deer in headlights. All right. Kick to the gut. Headlock. All right, this is what we're doing. And it's like, that's the thing. You got to be able to call it on the fly. So I do that with the podcast also, because at that point it's unpredictable. It's like, we have a little bit of questions, but we just feed off the energy. Me and Matt feed off of each other, or me and one of our comedian friends feed off of each other. And then also the guest starts feeding, that whole energy gets there. And then it just kind of rolls downhill. And then we also have a bunch of very fun, vulgar games. I have one that I created. It's called Name 3, and I'll just sit there and be like, name 3 places where you would not want to have sex with a corpse. Something like that. And, we also have what do you meme, which I'll hold up a photo, and you need to meme that photo. The guest memes the photo, then I'll meme the photo. We do Incoherent. Shout out to Incoherent. That's basically a game where I hold up a card and there's a quote in drunken lingo. Like it would say, I like to wear pantyhose, but it's in drunken lingo. Well, I love to wear pantyhose. You need to try to sound it out, and there's hints on the back. And we call this segment Ode to Humanity. And of course, we can't do Ode to Humanity without Cards Against Humanity, which.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We started off with reading each card the way you actually, play the game. And then one of our comedian friends, Justin Schlegel, he's like, why don't you do it? He's like, it's your show. I don't care. But he's like, why don't you do it to where you read off the face card and then you draw 5 cards and you just tell your guests, you're going to randomly draw 1 through 5. Whatever you draw is going to answer that card. And I found that way is a little bit more fun. And then if they don't like that answer, it's like you get 1 rebuttal, but whatever your rebuttal is going to answer that card. So it could be the most relaxed thing in the world or the most awful thing in the world. And it's like, they can choose of, hey, which one am I going to like? Which one am I not going to like? But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's a fun ride. Sometimes we'll be live on Fridays. Sometimes we'll be live on Sundays. Just the best thing to do is to get onto the Facebook, get onto our Instagram, look up the Happy Hour podcast. Best thing to do, look up the HH pod, because the HH pod will, hashtag the HH pod on any of those, and it'll direct you right to us, because I don't think anything else uses the HH pod. That's why we have the hhpod.com. And just like us, follow us, subscribe, and you'll know whenever we're going to go live. We're going to have Mr. Skin. If anybody knows who Mr. Skin is, from MrSkin.com, he's going to be on the program on December 4th. That's going to be at 5:30 Eastern time. So, 1:30 Pacific time. So make sure you come in, check that out. And of course, every episode will go live. And then a couple of days later, I edit it down into a 1-hour version. YouTube, we do about 2 hours on YouTube. Audio version, I keep at 1 hour to keep the happy hour gimmick.
Happy hour, yes, happy hour. That's right. Come to think of it, you're getting some guests on. I'm thinking you probably get somebody from the Baltimore Ravens on too, or even the Orioles. You show me up there too. So
yeah, way back in the day, we had Sergio Kendall from the Ravens. He was on Happy Hour TV, and what was it? Vincent Painter. He played for the Redskins and the Broncos and a few other teams. He's actually a really good friend of the show. So he also owns a marijuana dispensary in La Plata, Maryland. And he's been on the show a half dozen times. Very good guy. Just kicks it, loves to have a great time. But yeah, and every so often we'll do live stuff. Like we'll go to a bar like Hysteria Brewing Company, and we'll do the show there. We won't really do it on the mic live because, as I said, our show is very vulgar. So unless like it's a paid gig and people are paying, to buy tickets just to hear that. But what we'll do is we'll record there, and, we still leave it open for the public. Hey, we're going to be here. We're going to have this guest with us. Feel free to come out, maybe say hi. But, don't come out with the intention of being able to hear the show over to the loudspeakers, because we're just there for a recording thing. It's a lot easier for me to take 6 people to a bar and record there that we have a good relationship with than to bring 6 people to my house and try to get it all together, in my basement at my house. So, but yeah, I mean, Mike, as I said, I appreciate you having me on your show, man. I mean, is there anything else you want to know about the show or wrestling? Or, I mean, I have plenty of time.
I'll tell you one thing. I think we have a lot going on as well too, and of course, we talked about off the air as well too. You being a passionate Oriole fan, Raven fan, and everything else. And of course, where I'm from, it's like we talk a lot of hockey as well too. The Baltimore Skipjacks. That's right. It's like you guys are legendary Skipjacks. Unbelievable. I forgot about that. Baltimore Skipjacks. Why didn't I think of that?
We actually have a bar not too far from my house called Skipjacks.
Really?
So, yeah. So it was named after the Baltimore Skipjacks. So, but yeah, Skipjacks. They have 2 locations down near where I am. But of course, and Mike, am I wrong? You're in New York, correct?
No, I'm actually 40 miles west of Bismarck, North Dakota, 250 miles south of the Canadian border. So the further you go up, the more hockey pucks will come at you, but they're very nice people. So,
so what's your baseball team?
My baseball team, well, considering I grew up in the Midwest, I was born in Milwaukee. I was a Brewer fan, went to Racine. It was a choice between the Brewers, the Cubs, the White Sox, and then my dad got me a Cubs hat from Jose Cardinal, and then I wore that, became a Cub fan in an instant. I lived the Cubs, blood Cubby Blue, died Cubby Blue until 2016 when they finally won the World Series, and then it's going to take another 109 years to win a freaking World Series, but it's not going to be the Cleveland Indians, maybe the Cleveland Guardians or the Spiders or somebody else, like that. But, I was just telling some people, it's like, they say hell freezes over when the Cubs win the World Series or the world's going to come to an end soon. That's when people come to say after the Cubs won, it goes, Mike, you're a true prophet of God. I says, no, Cub fans been staying for over 100 years.
And what's funny is, it's rough being an Orioles fan because, like in my lifetime, we've never made it to the World Series. I was born in 85. Last time the Orioles went was 83.
I remember. Yes. Yeah.
And, but I was too young to also appreciate the 96 and 97 playoff runs we had because 96, I was 10, 97, I was 11. But 2014, that was a different story. I went to both of those playoff games that were at Camden Yards. And I've been a part of a lot of wrestling shows. I've been to a WrestleMania. I've been to so many concerts. Nothing. And I'm telling you, and it's going to be hard to duplicate, nothing to this day has beaten the roar that was in that stadium when Delman Young hit that 3-run double to put the Orioles in the lead in the 8th inning against the Tigers. It was so loud. We were up in the 3rd row. You could feel Lady Camden just shaking underneath your feet. It was so loud it broke the decibel level, and you could hear the fans all the way downtown Baltimore.
Oh my gosh.
Down. And the Orioles thing. And I know if you've ever went live, and of course anybody listening, go to Camden Yards. It's one of the best baseball experiences you ever have. Not, it's not me being biased, with the Orioles. Ask anybody who's ever been to Camden Yards. It's the best ballpark in all of baseball. A lot of ballparks have been modeled after it. Pirates, Nationals, a lot of the modern day ballparks were modeled after Camden Yards. When I go to them, I look at those ballparks and I see Oriole Park in those ballparks because they were modeled after that. But yeah, Baltimore fans are insane. We do the whole, when, they're doing good. And then one thing that if you've never been to Baltimore, we ruined the national anthem. So,
say, can you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because have you ever been to an Orioles game, Mike?
I've never been to Baltimore, but now you're making me want to go. In fact, I'm going to punch in my ticket to go over there. And wait, we got to drive there. I forgot. It's like you got to do all this COVID BS and everything else. So I'm going to drive. Thank you as soon as I get done with you. So keep the light on for me, will you?
What's funny is with Camden Yards, of course, Baltimore's known for the national anthem. The national anthem was written in Baltimore. Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. We have the Francis Scott Key Bridge. So the national anthem was written here. There's a lot of rich history with that in Baltimore. So when they recite the national anthem, when they get to the point of, oh, can you see? Oh, say, can you see? Everybody, if there's 40,000 people in that stadium, everybody, when they get to that goes, oh, as loud as you can. And if anybody has never seen it before, they look around like, what? And Baltimore is the only place that does it. And a lot of people got mad. They're like, oh, that's disrespectful to the national anthem. It's like, we wrote it. We can change it if we want to. And that's a Baltimore thing. I've seen Joan Jett. I think it was an NBA playoff game that was like in Milwaukee or somewhere. And Joan Jett sang the national anthem. When she sang it, she yelled the O because she's from Maryland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and if you ever go anywhere and someone does a national anthem and you hear someone ridiculously yell, oh, when they get to O say, can you see? That person is from Maryland. I guarantee you, or they're an Oriole fan of some kind because that's 100% a Maryland thing. Is screaming "oh" as loud as you can during the national anthem. So,
oh my gosh, I did not know that. Now I can put that in my memory book as well too. Oh, can you see? Wow, unbelievable! I'm ready to go to an Oriole game, and of course, I remember the Baltimore Ravens as well too. I had some friends that are huge Ravens fans, and of course, Ray Lewis made a play or whatever it is. It's like I mean, what was it Raven Stadium or M&T or was it MT Bank or something at the time? It would explode like crazy.
Oh, yeah. M&T Bank Stadium. Of course, they built it. And, it's crazy because Camden Yards is right in the middle of the city of Baltimore. Like, New York, New York Mets. They're not in the middle of New York. They're in like Flushing, New York. A lot of stadiums. Some of them are off near the water, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, all that. Baltimore Stadium right in the middle of the city. Like literally, you come off of 95 minutes right there. And they put Raven Stadium right there. So they have Ravens Walk. So, Raven Stadium's here. Camden Yards is right here. And, it's kind of like that in Philly too. You have Philadelphia, Eagles, Philadelphia Phillies, right next to each other, kind of in the, in the middle of the city. And that's the way it should be. I don't, like it when there's teams that, they're not in the middle of their city. They're just kind of off in the middle of nowhere because, football and baseball, they're kind of like the heart of the team. That's what people, it's their pastimes. I mean, not being able to go see the Orioles in 2020 because of COVID, it was awful. It's like, because Camden Yards is second home to me. But, it is what it is. Baseball will always be forever, just like pro wrestling. Pro wrestling improvised, just like baseball, they improvised. It still happened. There were no fans, but it still happened, and I did a couple of shows. Actually, I did 3 shows in 2020, non-televised shows in 2020, just to help out. And it was weird. Like, you get used to training at a wrestling school, not having fans around, but actually doing it in kind of like a show type situation is weird. And, at the time I was a head trainer at the wrestling school for EWA. And, I just did it to help some of the young guys or, just kind of get in the ring and, help get some of the younger talent over because it was never about me. It was always about the fans and, helping out a lot of the other guys anyways. And it was weird. It was just such a weird thing.
A lot of people were saying the same thing too about, doing shows. They're used to playing in a theater or an arena or even in a bar. And it's like, playing at home, it's like, it's just a totally different experience. Or even I was watching some country concert at the Nashville, what was it? Grand Ole Opry. And it's like having no fans there. And it's just like, boy, it's like, it was just strange having like, no fans or somebody hits a home run. It's like there's no one to cheer
reaction, nothing.
Or a touchdown. And then I was listening to a Minnesota Viking game when they were playing the Packers and the Packers score. It's like there was like no cheers, no boos, but somebody said that the polling calls went down 85% because you could hear the referees. So
I mean, that's
oh my gosh. It was weird.
In pro wrestling, especially, like I always liked being the bad guy. It's like the kind of thing like you get a guy in the corner and you have your hand against their chin or whatever and all that. You're getting ready to punch them. And, at that point, the element of looking at the fan and going, this is going to be you later. And then hitting the guy as you look the fan, in the eyes or whatever and all that element's gone. You can't work that crowd. Like the whole thing is you go out there, you're a performer, you're performing for an audience. But at that point, it's like there's no longer an audience. And with me, it was kind of weird with the podcast also because I'm so used to a live crowd, but I got used to it when we did the TV show of just being in front of a camera. And it's like, I never think who could possibly see it or, whatever, it's like, hey, it's out there. Like whatever, I'm putting it out there. I know everybody can see it. It is what it is.
And plus the best part about having on YouTube and many people do it on StreamYard is that people actually do tune in. You see the comments, the likes, and of course, the emoticons or some people saying, hey, great job, you suck, or, finding a way to like, thumbs up, give them the finger and all that. So it's like, you can actually do that. With the brand new technology, it's just like, you can just click a button and give it your opinion. And it's like, hey, there's somebody's out there that's listening. I mean, I have my shares of, compliments. I've had some criticisms, but it's like, hey, it is what it is. It shows that they may catch a mistake. They may catch you doing something stupid, but at least they're listening. That's the main important. They're listening.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. And it's like, really, when you look at it, your show, you delegate what happens on your show. That's the thing. Just like, I hate bringing that Astro World thing that just happened.
Oh my gosh.
And I said this before, you delegate what happens. There's been shows where I've been at where we started off when we would do chain wrestling. And we're doing chain wrestling, which is like, locking up, headlocks, hammer locks, whatever and all that. And you get this one jerk fan that would go, this is boring. And then it's like, all right, at that point, put on the headlock, I'll sit there and look at the fan and be like, you know what? I'll keep this headlock on all goddamn night, and you won't get to see Adam Cole wrestle. So why don't you sit down and why don't you shut up? Or why don't you come over to guardrail and I will beat your ass? And
there you go. Yeah. Or it's just like take that fan and put him in a ring and do a body slam. Oh, yeah.
And it's like at that point, I'm slowing down the pace. But also at any point, I could have stopped that show. I could have sat there and just been like, all right, well, I'm keeping this. And that's the thing. It's like, with that, there's no reason why they shouldn't have stopped it. At least let that ambulance get through. And then if need be, restart it. There's no reason to not stop it. And I come from an industry where the quote is the show goes on, regardless, the show goes on. But in a situation like that, yes, like even when Owen Hart fell to his death, they stopped the show, got Owen Hart out of the ring. And then the show went on after that, because people paid money to be there to see it. But with a situation like that, you have to stop the show, even if it doesn't continue afterwards, even if it does continue afterwards, what have you, you have that power as the performer. Be like, hey, everybody stop. Everybody back up and, whatever, I don't know. It's just, it's a slippery slope, but
there was like 9 or 10 deaths at Astroworld or something. Wow. It's like, I was reading about that and it looked like an impressive lineup, Earth, Wind and Fire. And, I think I was trying to think there was a couple of rappers over there and all of a sudden hearing these deaths. I'm like, oh, why,
It's not fun. It's a black eye. It's really a black eye for Live Nation and, the people who orchestrated that event and Travis Scott, who's gotten in trouble for that kind of stuff before, it's just, it's not fun. And my thing is one of my favorite things, when I was a pro wrestler was meeting people. Intermission, people come up to you regardless if you're a bad guy or whatever, someone comes up, hey, can I have your autograph? And you're like, all right, you know what? I'll sign this. But if you tell anybody, I'm going to come out here, I'm going to give you a black eye, or I'm going to saying that to a kid. But it's the whole thing of you're staying in the gimmick as the bad guy, but you're still signing an autograph because a lot of guys will be like, I'm not signing that. And it's like, you still need to sign something to a point. It's like, sign it and be like, hey, look, come here. I'll sign this. But you come back here later, it's going to be $5. Here, take it and get out of here. And it's the point that you're still acting them. Later on, they're going to still boo you if you haven't wrestled already because, you signed their thing, but you were a jerk to them when you were doing.
And the thing I think a lot of people don't realize, especially with the actors, the entertainers, of those in the public eye, you are representing yourself. So you don't need to hire a publicist or a PR guy. You are your own publicist and public relations. It's how you interact. And of course, Willie Nelson at all his concerts plays for the fans. He signs and smokes weed, whatever it is. That's why he's so well liked. And you got some jerks out there who, there's quite a number. I'm not going to rattle off a bunch. It's like they're getting like, just out of the business because they won't sign an autograph. They tell somebody to fuck off or whatever it is and everything like that. So it's like, I mean, the thing is, they ask for an autograph. They're like, sure, why not? And if you hate somebody, give them the autograph. Why not? They'll be a friend later. And I remember going through a parade and dishing out candy. There was like a couple of bullies who I hated. I says, here, have some candy. And they became good friends later too. So it's like, you never know who you're going to make your day when you oblige, sign their autograph, take a picture, smile, and everything like that. You never know. You'd make your day a lifelong friend. And of course, that story be out there. It's just like, that would just, it just goes a long way. I mean, there's no words to it. It goes a long way.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's never a reason to turn somebody down. One thing I've always, and, I'll kind of, because I know we're kind of getting short on time or whatever with the show. But I'll kind of, close a little bit with this is that being humble, that goes a long way.
It does.
I never made a lot of money wrestling. I barely make any money at all. I sell a few t-shirts for the podcast every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the whole thing of being humble, being humble of, the fans who paid to see you, going out there, making them feel good, giving them the best show you can, sign autographs for them, with the podcast, trying to find interesting guests, doing it every single week, taking time out of my schedule to do that. Because even if it's one person, they're having a bad night, they go on and be like, hey, these morons from the Happy Hour podcast are going to make me laugh.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. So, it's just, more of just staying humble. And you don't have a lot of that, in the world anymore. It's like everybody's worried about themselves and, nobody's humble about anything. Everybody thinks everything should be handed to them on a plate. It's like, I busted my butt with everything I've done the last 20 years with pro wrestling, with my podcast. I have an eBay. I'm an eBay seller. My regular job, balancing all that plus my personal life. It's absolutely insane. How you have to stay humble, and then you throw in sometimes, there's a lot of mental illness out there. I have stress, anxiety, depression myself. So it's like you factor all that in, plus with everything else you're doing, there's a lot going on.
And plus Instagram as well, too, for instant gratification. That's what Instagram's supposed to be, IG, instant gratification. There's too many out there. It's like, I go on accounts and I see like, a selfie every 5-10 seconds. I'm like, really? Or somebody has to tweet something every 5-10 seconds. Hey, I went to the bathroom. Hey, I walked the dog, or hey, it's like, my cat threw up and all that. It's just like,
that's the thing.
Trying to get instant attention. But, the thing is that stuff doesn't last forever. I mean, who actually remembers something from Instagram like, 3 months ago, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? Who's going to remember all that?
Well, that's the thing. Just like with TikTok, you have these creators of TikTok, and my wife she watches a lot of TikTok. I don't really mess around with TikTok much, but you have these people that are creating content that's some of the most god-awful, stupidest things I've ever seen in my life that have millions and millions and millions of views, and these people are being paid a lot of money for
oh my gosh, wow.
SHIT that they're putting out. Meanwhile, guys like us who are busting our asses to get someplace, our kind of content isn't seen much because there's so many people with that short attention span that'd rather be like, oh, hey, look, this person's like painting weird bubbles on the wall. Hey, it's like, what even is, like, I don't know if society's just dumbing down or what, but, attention spans are definitely, they're not what they used to be. So doing a podcast, it makes it even harder because you need to keep people entertained for an hour or a half an hour or whatever it is.
And they say too, the studies have shown that the attention span has really gone down. Now it's getting to be like what, 5-10 seconds at the most. And I've interviewed some singers, and nowadays it's like they're putting out songs like 30 seconds long, a minute 30, 2 minutes long at the most. I mean, back in the day, they were like, 3-minute songs, 5-minute songs, 10-minute songs, and go all the way into 20 and 30, like Pink Floyd, Yes, Genesis, Rush, and all that. It's like, I mean, I can just sit for an hour long listening to Yes, the whole time, or even Rush 2112, or
Stairway to Heaven.
Yes, that's right. Stairway to Heaven, about 7, 8, 9, 10 times smoking weed and having a brew with you guys. Hey, I think we can do a podcast or something. Play Stairway to Heaven and talk, whatever too. So I think we just came up with a great idea here. And wrestling with Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, and John Paul Jones, or wrestling with Mick or Keith Richards. Like, how long will they last?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's been a fun ride, man. It really has. Like, I'm not one of those types of guys. I'm not a big religious guy. I'm one of those ones that, like, I have things that I believe in. I believe in a higher power, but, I don't say really in this quote much, but I feel real blessed, because it's like I've been able to perform. My wrestling's been seen all over the world, with YouTube, and the podcast has been heard and viewed, all over the world. I always tell people, it's like, you have your option. You can either be that little teeny tiny dot that's on the map, or you can sit there and be the dot that's this size on the map.
Or you're going to make this size, or that size, or the size of our Zoom we're speaking right now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. And I tell people all the time, it's like, when people start to, brag and all that stuff, or, start putting me down, I'm not one of those guys who goes, hey, this is what I've done. What the F have you done? This is what I've done, and that's the whole thing, and then when I roll those things up, people are just kind of, and it's like, well, I mean, why are you coming at me? Like, I've done a lot, I've been, right. Also, I put the work in. People want stuff now. They just want things handed to it. It's like, you need to put the work in, and not saying that the podcast will it'll probably never be anything, but at least I can sit there and be like, hey, I put the work in and made that show what I wanted it to be. And that's the thing, someone once referred to the show as the poor man Joe Rogan's podcast. Mm-hmm. I laughed. I was like, you know what? I will take that. If the name Joe Rogan and whatever comes out of anybody's mouth referring to our show in any way, good or bad, I will take that,
Something too, Joe Rogan can have his number one, because I interviewed a guy on there and said that there's no more going for number one these days. It's like you create your own number one within your own circle. And of course, they said in an old commercial back in the day, it's like, I told two of my friends about this, and they told two of their friends, and they told their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that's how you build your circle, and that's how you build your number one right there. So now I just tell somebody asked me, what are your chances of being like Joe Rogan? I says, Joe Rogan can have his number one. He's been doing it for like 13, 15 years as far as I know. It's like, I've got my own number one. It's like, I don't have any competition. The only competition is me. I got to say that. And we're all working together. We're here to share information. We're here to learn off each other. And if you need my help with any way, shape, or form, help you with the podcast, you let me know.
I will, man. I appreciate it. Definitely. And just real quick, what you just described in pro wrestling, that's what you call building the town. You go into a town you've never worked before, and every month you work there, more and more people be like, oh, you got to see the show. You got to see the show. And then, one show you'll have 70 people. And then the next show, eventually you'll have 700 people. Mm-hmm. It's building an audience, building the town. But no, Mike, I appreciate it, man. It's been fun. I appreciate you, having me come on, this Tuesday night, to hang out with you. And, it's been fun, man.
It's always a lot of fun. We'll definitely have you back on. Once again, Ray Chase of the Happy Hour podcast on the Mike Wagner Show. A very big thank you for your time. You've been totally amazing. And once again, tell us where can they find your podcast, and how can they reach you?
Of course, the podcast, main place to find it, www.thehhpod.com. That'll have all of our Facebook links, all of our Instagram links, all the places where you can find a podcast. Of course, the podcast is available on every major podcast platform. We mainly focus a lot of our time into YouTube and our YouTube live show. So that's www.youtube.com/happyhourtvmd. Just go to there, hit subscribe. It'll let you know whenever we go live. And I mean, it's out there, just, hhpod.com, and it's all on there. And you can message me directly. If anybody out there is listening, you want to be a guest on the show, you have like an interesting talent, or you're just an interesting person in general, reach out. We'll have you on. We bring people from all walks of life on the show all the time.
We certainly do so. Once again, Ray, very big thank you for your time, and definitely looking forward to you soon, and love to be on our show. Keep in touch. And yeah, you've been absolutely terrific, and we wish you all the best. Definitely a great future ahead of you, and I'm looking forward to your next podcast. You're my number one fan there.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
Picture this photo books, where remembering is the key ingredient. Preserving memories, keeping the memories of your loved ones alive as they reach in and touch your heart. How beautiful your mother looked at her wedding, and even more so at yours. The holidays are coming. What better time to give a gift of remembrance that makes you laugh and cry all at the same time? Whether it's a gift of past holidays, grandma's recipes, long ago moments, or just because, those smiles and tears will melt your heart. Call Karen Shaw at 646-798-0809. Once again, that's 646-798-0809. Or visit picturethisphotoBooks.com.
Hey everybody, my name is Forbes Riley, and I'm an American actress and a TV host. And I was delighted when I got my copy of Missing, which is Extraordinary Relation of Ordinary People based on a real life relationship. It's well written. It's amazing. It talks about a man who has lost his wife and his daughter, and it's very well done. I'm going to highly recommend that you go get your copy of Missing. It is a powerful, exciting read. Mr. Mian Moshe Zia. He is the author of Missing. And I want to give a big shout out and a kiss all the way halfway around the world to my dear friend. Check him out at Mia's website. It's called www.miamotionzea.com. Missing. Available on Amazon. Again, I'm Forbes Riley, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.